Do you ever feel guilt over your addiction? I know this seems like a stupid, obvious question, but for me, I shoved my feelings down so hard, and the things that I did to my child, to my partner, to my family, to my parents, I just shoved it all down. And to be completely honest, I didn't even remember or allow myself to remember a lot of it until I stepped into this space of, I don't want to feel like crap anymore. And I am so tired of staying in the same place and going nowhere that I'm willing to actually try something new. So I am healing my addictions. I am dealing with guilt, dealing with mom guilt, parental guilt. I am starting to recognize what it was like to have a parent who was addicted, which I did. They say, oh, well, addiction is hereditary. Not really. How we cope, in my opinion, just in my opinion, I'm not an expert. I feel like I'm an expert on being addicted, but in my opinion, I don't believe that addiction is hereditary. I believe that learning how to cope using things and substances and chemicals or medications or behaviors, I think that coping is passed down to our children and was passed down to me. But I don't think that there's like something in our DNA that says, oh, because I have addiction, now my child is going to have addiction. Because my parents had addiction, I'm going to have addiction. I want to stop that mess. I don't like that perspective. I don't agree with it. And I have hope that my son is not going to go down those roads. But I've had to show him different ways of being. And my parental guilt. So let me back up a minute. This is about guilt and addiction. My perspective today is about being a parent and being addicted to everything under the sun that would help me escape. That could be people, places, things, chemicals, love, oh my gosh, food, gambling, drugs, alcohol, medications. It really didn't matter. I was addicted to suffering. That I was addicted to the emotions that did not make me happy, and I knew no other way to be happy other than to find something, someone, or act a certain way that gave me that pump of, what is it, dopamine and serotonin, whatever the chemicals are inside of you that make you happy. I had to chase down in other things because I didn't know how to produce them on my own. And that's going to play a part in a story that I tell later. But today I want to offer some practical things that I invite you to consider doing. You don't have to, but I do. I invite you to consider them because I had this massive breakthrough in my parental guilt with a conversation with our son. And I'm going to share that story today because some of the things that I invite you to consider doing might give you some relief in your guilt. So you can apply these things if it is your friend or your parent or your child or your best friend or you. However your situation with guilt is, don't just be like, oh, well, she's speaking from the parent and the child perspective, so that's it. No, this can be for anybody. But for me, I'm going to speak from my experience, which is the parental side of things, the mom guilt, parental guilt, and then being a child of a parent who went through addiction, and it caused a lot of chaos in my life. So 6 or 7 years ago, I guess 7 years ago, maybe 8, I was a homeless heroin addict. I was addicted to heroin. I was addicted to fentanyl. I was addicted to meth, pot. I was addicted to escape, but those major ones were the ones that had happened. And I lost my home. And it wasn't because I grew up with an addicted parent. 1 year prior to all of that, I had a great job. I was in finance, accounting, and I did payroll for a whole company. I managed a lot of money, accounts payable, accounts receivable, and I was moving up in the company. I had a condo 5 minutes from the beach. We were renting, I didn't own it. I had a new car, and I was on pain management for my back and some female issues. And I didn't know what those medications did. I didn't know that they affected your whole body, your whole mind, your whole life. So when I finally decided to have a surgery to get rid of the pain, I figured I don't need them anymore. And I just up and just stopped. I didn't look into the mental side of that. I didn't realize what opiates did. It was morphine and Percocet. And I lost it. I was already having trouble with the pain and managing things and taking care of my child at the time. And I just thought this was going to fix my life. I just thought, oh, I'm just going to get off this medication. I'm going to give up the ability to have children. That was the surgery. And I think all of that emotionally, mentally, physically was just too much for me. Doctors don't tell you. They can show you how to wean off of it physically, but nobody really tells you about the mental side of it. Opiates numb a lot more than just physical pain. They numb emotional pain. And they help me manage so much inside of me that I didn't realize it was doing. So from that surgery and that too fast detox that I chose to do, less than, I guess it was about a year later, I was homeless and addicted to very hard drugs. So I was pretty normal. I have dealt with addiction off and on throughout my life, and I don't call myself an addict. I'm not going to claim that as my identity. What I do claim is I just didn't know how to be happy. And those were the coping mechanisms that I was shown, I was programmed, and I found worked. So, needless to say, I felt really guilty. I got off the street with the help of my partner, of my mom, who had taken care of my son during 2 years that I was homeless and really deep into suffering and addiction. And I got help. I found my way home. I got a job, we got a place, and things slowly got better, very slowly. I got some help for my mental illnesses, which were many. But what this video is about is guilt. And the guilt from leaving my son for those 2 years. Because I didn't expect to survive and make it back to him. I sent him to my mom's, and at first I thought, oh, I got this handled, I can do this. I don't know what I was thinking, but I couldn't. I was so crushed over not being able to have children anymore, over losing everything, and just not feeling capable of taking care of him. But mothers who chose, I used to judge harshly. I used to be disgusted, if I'm really honest, with parents who left their children, who got addicted to things, who chose drugs over spending time with them, over caring for them. After I had my son, I was just like, how could you possibly? I never thought I would get back into drugs after I had him. Never. I loved him so much, and I was so shocked by that because I didn't think I knew what love was. I was worried I was going to be an awful mom. But I loved being a mom. Gosh. Oh, I love being a mom. I love it. But that didn't help my mental state. That didn't help me deal with my emotions. And it didn't teach me to cope with life. It taught me that I know what love is and I know how to feel it. Great. And it's a whole different kind of love, having a child. But it didn't fix me. And since I didn't learn how to cope with life, I didn't learn how to cope with life, with big things happening, with shocking things happening, with unexpected things happening, with overwhelming feelings. Seriously, with having a bad day. I didn't know how to cope with any of that. I actually did not know how to cope with life. And I didn't know how to be happy, to be honest. He made me happy. I love being a mom. I love going to work and coming home and cooking for us and washing the dishes and giving him a bath. Like, I loved it all. And then my hysterectomy happened, and getting off of pain management happened, and life fell apart happened, and I became that mom who, from the outside, I would have been like, oh, you don't care about your kid. You care about drugs more than your kid. You don't want to be a parent. You know, you don't give two shits about your kid. That's the way I would have looked at it. But the truth is, I didn't feel I deserved to be a mother. And I didn't know how to care for him while I was suffering. And I didn't know how to process my emotions. And I figured, at least with my mom, he would be safe. But it really came down to, I didn't feel worthy of being his mom. So fast forward, him coming home to me, a mother that didn't look like the one he remembered. And he had to go through mental breakdowns. He had to go through my addictions. He had to go through my partner taking me to a mental hospital. He had to go through me having psychological breaks of not knowing what was real and what wasn't. Waking him up in the middle of the night, telling him about visions I was having, which actually made sense later. But I got better. I am currently not on anything. I currently just went 6 weeks with nothing in my system. No medications, alcohol and marijuana and my zero nicotine vape. I haven't been on nicotine since September of last year, so I don't know, 9 months or something. And I just gave them all up and went 6 weeks without any of it. Because I kept telling myself, oh, it's legal, it's legal. But it's like, you know what? I don't need it. It doesn't make me feel good anymore. And I have found different ways to cope. And then I slipped. After I had made it, my intention was to make it like 5 weeks until my birthday. Like, I can do anything for 30 something days, right? So my birthday comes and goes. I did my first like live event that came and went. And then a few days later, I'm going to pool, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to have a couple glasses of wine. I made it. I fulfilled my intention and my goal, and here I am. I made it 5 weeks, and I had a couple glasses of wine. Felt good. I nursed one so much that somebody made fun of me. So I was like, fine, it's cool. I'm enjoying my wine. I'm not trying to get drunk. I'm not even trying to catch a buzz. I was just trying to just relax and kind of pat myself on the back that I had made it 6 weeks, even longer than my intention, without anything. And I didn't feel great. I didn't feel bad the next day. I mean, we ended up detailing our cars for like hours outside, and it was really hot, but we got stuff done. So I think like a week after that, a friend of mine went through a loss, and I decided to take over a joint to her. And I had been feeling kind of weird, kind of shameful and guilty, and it's just like, why? I just had a couple glasses of wine. Like, and I kept telling myself, like, brush that off. Seriously. Like, I don't need to feel guilty about that. Like, how I talk to myself, I'm trying to catch and not feel guilty over things that I really don't need to feel guilty about. And I really didn't think that I did, but I just had this like guilt and shame like coming up, like, and it felt so gross and it felt so bad. And I was like, this doesn't really fit. Like, you know, I didn't go out and get drunk, you know, like I've done so much worse than have a couple of glasses of wine and got home just fine. But I don't know, like something just wasn't sitting right. So I take some pot over to my friend's house and, you know, help her get through the night is what I was telling myself. But I was kind of trying to, I realized after the fact, escape these like kind of weird feelings that I had going on. I told myself, but I was doing it for her. I told myself I was doing it for her though. And so I go over, you know, I made her feel better. She was really grateful. And then the next night I smoked again by myself because I was like, oh, it was so nice to have just some dead sleep and to just relax. And I was like, but I'm not going to smoke after that. You know, I'm controlling this. I don't want to get back into these habits that I just got rid of. And my life was just fine. I went through some ups and downs during those 6 weeks, but I did it. So I tell myself I'm not going to smoke the next night, and then I do. And I tell myself I'm not going to smoke the next night, and then I do. So that last night I was like, I'm going to toss the rest of it. I mean, there wasn't really like that much left anyways. So I throw the rest of it away, and I just feel like crap. Like mentally and emotionally, like I go into this like depression, and I'm like, what the hell is this? Right? What the hell is this? I smoked some pot, I had some drinks, and I can just go back into not doing it again, right? Well, then I realized those 6 weeks were the first 6 weeks in 30 years, 3 decades, that I had had nothing in my system, that I had been completely clear. No medications, no nicotine, no substances, no chemicals of any kind. And I was just like, oh, wow. I'm gonna pat myself on the back. And I was trying not to kick myself for, I don't want to say like effing it up, but I kind of did, right? And then I still had this guilt and shame like bubbling in me. I'm like, what the hell is this? Like, really, what is this? And I end up having this conversation with my son. I tell myself I'm going back into, I'm going to wait till maybe July 4th. I was going to go to a party and maybe I'll do something then. But I'm just like, I'm going to stay clear of things. Like, my life was just fine. I don't want this guilt and shame and whatever the hell it is. So I had made that intention. It was done. And I think it was like a week later or something. My son and I had to go and get some labs for him. And then we went and we got donuts. And I don't even know. Oh, we were talking about like, he broke his collarbone and then 2 weeks later dislocated his kneecap. Really rough month, this poor kid. But he's been so strong through it. He's really been awesome. I mean, he has a lot of resilience. He has a lot of training in being resilient all the way around. And I was like, you're just so physically strong, but I kind of wonder what it'll be like if you go through some hard like emotions, if you're going to be like resilient like that. And, like maybe the first time that your heart's broken and, or you guys you and your girlfriend break up one day or something. And he's just like, well, I've already been left. And I was like, ooh, you got a point there. And then he starts talking about his dad. And I was like, oh, okay. And I was all, but son, I left you too. And he says, no, that doesn't even compare. And I was like, what? His dad left him when he was about 4. He stopped showing up. And I think he's seen him one time since then. His dad, not my story to tell. But he's not around. And our son is 15. So I'm like, what do you mean it doesn't compare? Like, we both abandoned you, and we weren't getting really deep. It was kind of like it was a light conversation considering what it was about. We both talked about all of this stuff a lot. So he says, you didn't have a choice. You were an addict. Wow. I said, son, I just got chills. Son, you just gave me one of the biggest gifts ever. He's all, oh, well, don't take it too, I shouldn't have said it then, or so, I don't know. He just kind of blows it off because I got kind of, not like emotional, but I think he could tell I was in awe of that statement. And it was such a simple statement. You didn't have a choice. You were an addict. Now, my perspective, when I left him with my mom, my perspective on myself was, you chose drugs over your son. You gave up on motherhood. I felt like the sorriest piece of shit ever. I judged myself. I was disgusted with myself the same way that I judged people before, even though it happened to me and I actually knew the experience. I knew what it actually felt like, and that wasn't the case. The truth of the matter is I didn't feel worthy of being a mom. I had failed so harshly. I lost our home. I lost my job. I lost his safety. I lost it all. I didn't deserve to be his mother. He deserved better. That's actually what it is when parents don't feel like they have any choice. and they don't know how to take care of their children. I can't even say people, that's not fair. I'm just going to speak for me. I was addicted to victimhood. I was addicted to pain. I was addicted to suffering. I was addicted to manipulating people, and I didn't even know it. And obviously substances. I was addicted to running away from my emotions. Gosh, that was my number one. I hated to feel because I felt so deep, so hard all the time. Like, pain was so hard and love was so hard. Like, if just emotions were just very difficult. I'm getting better at them. So my whole point here is, say your friend, your child, your parent, whoever your addiction has affected or their addiction has affected you, consider asking that person or yourself, how do you view me as an addict? And then now, how do you see it looking back? Because my perspective that my son was like, felt completely abandoned and felt that I chose drugs over him, it wasn't the truth. It wasn't reality. It was my feelings about something that had just brought so much shame and guilt. But my son's just like, you tried, you came back. I know you love me. Like, just in that simple sentence, it wasn't your fault. You were an addict. It wasn't your choice. You were an addict. The people that we love, that love us, like, they can feel our love. They can feel when we try. And yes, it hurts when we fall. There isn't a single substance out there or behavior, actually, where I've been like, I'm going to stop that and I'm just going to be done. Like, I was not one of those cool people who are just like cold turkey something and then never go back and just wake up and say, I'm done with fill in the blank. No, I had to practice at it, I guess. Everything that I have attempted to quit, I have gone back to. Everything. I realized that the other day too. Every single thing. But I kept trying. And now I am literally off everything. Medications I thought I'd be on for life. I thought I'd be mentally ill for life. I thought I'd be addicted for life. I thought I'd have to fight for happiness and never feel it for life. And that wasn't the truth either. So instead of having this perspective of, I need to feel guilty, or somebody around me needs to feel guilty for their addiction, consider sitting in today, right now. Right now. What do you feel about that situation right now? What do your loved ones feel about that situation right now? You have to ask. You have to ask yourself and be honest how you actually feel. And then ask your loved ones how they actually feel. Now, this can go multiple ways. Don't think that you're going to ask and you may get like what my son told me and it's magical and you're like, oh wow, I can change my whole perspective on everything. My guilt and shame, I don't need to feel it anymore because my son sees it this way. Not everybody's story is going to be like that. So I was thinking the other day, my stepdad was an alcoholic, a raging alcoholic. He is a great man, but a raging alcoholic. And my mom enabled him. She wanted to help him so bad, their whole relationship. And I grew up watching that from a very young age. He was my stepdad. He adopted me when I was 3. And I was estranged from him from pretty much like 16 on. There's a whole story about that I'm gonna put in my book. But the bottom line is I just was so angry with him over everything. And I just stopped talking to him. If my family wanted to take our son over to see him, I didn't care, but I refused to see him for 25 years until he was on his deathbed, actually. And my mom, the way I saw it was she allowed it to happen. Now, if either one of them would have been like, oh, what did his addiction do to you? I'm going to tell you the other side of the coin. because sometimes our loved ones don't get it and they can't see past their pain. And that would have been me. If they would have been like, how is his addiction affecting you? It affected me. It was so crappy. It made my whole childhood unsafe, chaotic, and I hated it. I hated every minute of it. It changed my whole life. It taught me how to be an angry drunk. It taught me how not to deal with things. It taught me how to run away. I got nothing good from it. And that's exactly what I would have said, even if he got sober. Seriously. Unless I was around and actually saw differences and changes, maybe. I don't know. But I'm just being real with you. I would not have responded well. But here's something else I invite you to do. If you get a painful response or a response that isn't positive and doesn't change things for the better, it is still information. Because I had to think about it. What could my mom and my stepdad have asked me at any period of time after I was like 16 and on, where I was like, I want nothing to do with you guys? What could they have asked me that would have made me like calm down and see things in today? And I realized that question would have been, what could we do to help heal the pain that you have experienced? I believe that question, like, how did my addiction affect you? Like, they wanted to know, they cared. And I would have responded with piss and vinegar. And then if they would have asked, what can we do to heal it now and in the future? I'd have had no choice but to go, well, nothing. You know, like, I wouldn't have said that. I wouldn't have said that. I would have had to self-reflect on today and what I would have want to see happen. Because sometimes when we're affected by addiction, the problem with that is we can't see past the pain, the hurt. The only perspective we have is that killed me. That ruined my life. What are you talking about? But to be asked, how can we heal it? I would have no choice but to go, damn, I don't know. Let me think about that. So when I say I invite you to ask, and I invite you to have zero expectations, or you can expect both. Maybe you have like the best situation in mind, and then you have the worst situation in mind. If you are unable to ask from a perspective of no expectations, then you can move forward in that current moment. But some people can't do that. For a while, I couldn't be like, I have no expectations. I didn't know how to do that. So maybe imagine the very worst case scenario, the very best case scenario, and then whatever happens will probably be somewhere in the middle. But you never know. It could be worse, and it could be better. It could be worse than your worst that you can come up with. It could be better than the better you can come up with. But whatever answer that you get, it's information. And the number one thing is how to heal it now. Maybe it's already healed. Like with my son, like, kids are so observant. They see and feel and know so much more than us parents give them credit for sometimes. It's just like I felt and saw and knew as a child, like things were not right in my house, even though we wanted to pretend like everything was fine. But our kids know. Our loved ones know. People who care about us, they know if we love them. And it might be underneath some pain, or it might just be right there in their present awareness. You know, my son gave me a totally different perspective, and I allowed that perspective. So that's the other thing. So if you get something that's positively, like unexpected and positive, allow yourself to take it in and adjust your perspective. So I am no longer, anytime this comes up, and it will take practice, everything with me takes practice, whether it's emotions or believing something different or saying something different or addictions or whatever it is, I have to practice it. I have yet to just pop in and be like, I'm going to change this. Sometimes, I take that back because I redid my closet and I'm able to put it all back the way that I want. But with emotions, it's not quite like that. I have to practice. So every time that I'm going to have any kind of guilt or shame come up, over me leaving him at my mom's while I was a homeless, hopeless drug addict, I'm no longer going to be like, I chose drugs over my son, because he's right. I didn't feel like I had a choice. Addiction took that from me. Not being able to cope took that from me. Not knowing what happiness was without chemicals took that from me. So my hope to you is send energy for whatever answer that you get. If you do this, I don't feel you regret it, as long as you can zoom out, be a witness, and see, no matter what the answer is, you have something to work with. And the number one question, what can we do to heal this today? Or, oh wow, you think like that? Damn, is that the truth? Sometimes what we think about ourselves isn't the truth. Sometimes what we think other people think about us isn't the truth. And I have had to learn the hard way. I have to ask. I have to ask. I've said this in other videos too. If you don't ask, you're not gonna know. And if you do ask and get an answer you don't want, it's just information. It's an opinion. If you like your opinion better than the opinion that they have, go with yours. I just so happen to like my 15-year-old's opinion about what I went through better than my own, because it serves me more. So the guilt that I was feeling from those couple of glasses of wine and those few nights of pot, that wasn't guilt and shame from those instances. It was guilt and shame from me thinking that I chose drugs and alcohol over my son. And my son didn't even know that I drank or did pot, like, at all, you know, or smoked some pot. Like, but I knew, I felt it. So just becoming aware of all that, and then having life show me, my child showing me, Mom, you don't have to feel guilty anymore. You didn't have a choice. You were an addict. And I'm not today. Why? Because I've learned different ways to cope. So if you feel guilty over anything in your life, ask yourself, is there a different perspective I can give myself and I can practice when these feelings come up? Because I feel like this video is coming into your awareness right now for a reason. And you clicked on this because you care. Because you care. And guilt sucks. Guilt has helped me. Guilt has helped me. I guess, I don't know. That's not wrong. Guilt and shame has taken me back into my addictions, back into my attachments, back into my crutches so many times. So we have to find a different way to look at it. We have to give ourselves grace. And if you can't forgive yourself right now, which I invite you to practice, just consider a different perspective. Acceptance for me has been the path to forgiveness. It's almost like forgiveness wasn't even necessary once I just accepted what is. So the truth is, did you choose to do all those things while you were addicted? Truly, do you feel like that person who did those things was you deep in your heart, who you actually are? Or did those addictions change your personality? Did those chemicals, did those emotional ties, did the love, did the hate, did the guilt, did the shame, didn't that all come from something that you were doing to yourself or acting out as just a way to cope? You're just trying to cope. And you're trying to figure out how to make yourself feel better because you feel so awful. And you have no choice but to run to something, whatever it is. Love, drugs, food, sex, porn. I mean, fill in the blank, it doesn't matter. The behavior comes from an internal problem that we don't have control over until we take back that control. And once we do, then we can set down that person that we are no longer, because today you are a different person than you were 2 seconds ago. When I started this video, I was a different person. Why? Because I'm putting myself on blast. And it feels good. It's a release. And I hope somebody gets something from it. But I'm a different person now because I've expressed all of this to you. You're a different person than you were when you were addicted, or even while being addicted. Even if you're addicted now, you can choose to be a different person right away. And then leave that other person that you aren't, leave them in the dust, because you create yourself new in every freaking moment. I didn't know that. I didn't know I had control to create my reality. No. I had to practice different thoughts. I had to practice different ways of viewing things because my perspective was skewed. You know, they say, oh, some people have rose-colored glasses. I had like shit-stained glasses. I saw the world through shit-stained glasses, and I'm not lying. And I saw myself the same. So once I started cleaning those glasses and finding different ways to view things and asking people questions, because people can mirror back to us what we need to hear, then I started healing. I started changing. I started behaving different. I started coping different. And then I started searching for things that helped me do all of the above. If you just take a tiny step towards where you desire to be, you're gonna get there. Might be slow, might be fast, might be overnight, might not, but you'll get there. So I'm not going to ask you to just get rid of your guilt. I'm just asking you to find a different perspective on something that you feel guilty about. And maybe ask your loved ones what you can do to help heal the hurt. Or if you want to ask a parent that's addicted, just say, are you even interested in healing this? And if that parent's not interested in healing it, then maybe it's time to step away from them for a little bit. And then maybe that question might poke into their subconscious and just be like, damn, my child actually wants to heal this. Maybe there's something I could do to help that. You never know. Just bringing healing into people's awarenesses can actually help heal. So anyhow, thank you for listening. I appreciate you listening to my stories, to the emotions that are so hard for me to feel, let alone express and tell you all about. But I want people to heal. I want everybody to have the ability to choose a perspective where they can see themselves in a different light. If you see yourself in darkness. If you already see yourself in the light, psh, rock on. I do. Most days I can actually see that I'm not a bad person. I've done some bad things, but I've also done some good things. And I know you have too. So let's just hang on to the good, accept the bad, set down what needs to be set down, and pick up what needs to be picked up. Sounds so simple, I know. But that took me years. But those are the things that helped. So I love you. Thank you for watching. If you can drop something positive and something negative into the comments, I would appreciate it. Or positive or negative. Anything. Or just a heart. I love hearts. All right. Have a great day. Subscribe or follow me if you are interested in seeing more content like this. And have a great day. You're awesome. You're powerful. You can set down anything in your life that does not serve you, including guilt and shame. All right. I love you. Have a great day. I'll talk to you later. Bye.